Now, am I glad that yesterday we got to ride the R1, because we woke up this morning to a very gloomy, dismal day. Not sure we're even going to be able to paint today, but we will take every riding day we can. Unfortunately, they are coming to an end very soon. And today's a very, very special day for me, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Karen says. I've mixed up that custom gold paint from Pigment, and today we'll get to do the first of the little arrows or spears, whatever you want to call them, on a motorcycle. And I think that's going to be, if Karen gives me the approval, it'll be Westward Ho to Wagons. And having all the trim on, and we have patterns for everything now that we kind of like it. John's almost done with looking at different choices for the logos. This whole project has taken on a life of its own. But to me, there's nothing more exciting than the first day. We have our fairing parts in black. And today is going to be the first day we're going to see, I hope, assuming it doesn't rain all day, we're going to see what that trim is going to look like on an actual part with some clear on it. Now let's see what the weatherman has in store for us and what the coffee producers of Columbia have in store for us. Either way, I know we're going to have a great day. And that's the whole point, I guess, of this whole thing is, I like to have every day to be a fun day in the shop. I don't know why. I wake up in the morning and I can't wait to get out to my shop and start working. And we were flying model airplanes. We had a distinct building season. We had to build a plane every year. And in motorcycling, I like to restore a motorcycle every year. Or something of the equivalent. Anyway, it is really a life I aspire to. And being a share it all on YouTube just makes it even better. Time for coffee. It's cold. It's still cold out here. It was cold yesterday riding that R1. Now, one of the other things that I thought about as I'm just thinking this through, I want to replace this. I'm going to repaint the tank, of course. This has got to go, but I'm going to move it down parallel to where it is and maybe lower down here. I'm going to have to get a really good rendition of this in dimensions for John, because I want this to be a little bit lower, because what happens when I put and I never ride without the radar detector. The radar detector kind of goes over that. If it were 2 inches lower, at least I'd see it, and since it's going to be gold, I really do want to see it. Just one more detail. Every project, it evolves. Little things here, little things there. And we spent so much time making those side pieces. It was a labor of love. They're going to change the look of the motorcycle. And I remember even making this little piece that goes up around the handlebars. What a labor of love that was. But in the end, it really did change the look of the motorcycle. And basically, the whole idea of everything we do is to do simple, easy things, mostly paintwork, the wheels, of course, coming up with some trim designs or some concept sketches. But none of this is radical, like cutting the frame or pulling the engine out and putting extra pistons in or something. This is all kind of simple stuff, and I think most of it an average person can do in a very simple shop like I have. It just takes passion. Now, Turbo Steve's tank is going to be drying for the next 3 or 4 days while he's in LA. He's going to link up with some cool motorcycle people there, hopefully send us some pictures. And we're ready to start those side fairings. My plan was, I still have, and I've got the finish on this, I'm real happy with that, but I'm still going to leave the part that I sprayed and cleared the other day, let it dry one more day up there. It's always good to have these parts extra dry, but these are ready. I'm going to go get the patterns and get started on masking off the trim. Now, in case you haven't seen the earlier video, we made all the patterns for all the trim that's going to be on the bike. Just some concepts yet. We're still working on the logos with John. I mixed up my own gold paint. There's a video of doing that. Did some paint testing. But today we actually get to start laying out the patterns on the motorcycle. And I have a spare for each one, just in case. I have to start cutting it up and moving it around. Okay, now because we have these patterns that we made, and we made spares for everything, of course, Now it's a question of, and I really thought in the very beginning, when I was looking from the exact side view of the bike, I had this down here, and then when I stood up, I said, it's going to disappear. I also had the choice of moving this all the way to the front, but then it kind of conflicted with these lines coming this way. And just to make this I gotta tell you, just to make this a little more complicated, both sides are different. This one has a curve, the other one is straight. So I'm going to try to do a little, what in aviation you call interpolation here. And I'm going to set this, let me see if I got some, yeah, I got some 1/4 inch. I'm going to set this a 1/4 inch up. Let's just see how that plays out. There's just ever so slightly a curve in here, which I'll just, the other side is straight. It's only about a 32nd of an inch, but what it means is these will not be exactly the same. They'll be close, and we'll put them side by side when we're done. Now, this will have to be here. Now, it isn't as easy as it looks to get it exactly right. To get it close, it's not a big deal, but when you want it really exactly right. Now, what I'm going to have to do is this. I'm going to have to move that up. I'm going to have to put this in this position. They're going to be a little bit different, no doubt about it, but they're going to look from far, well, you're never going to see them both at the same time, so it really doesn't matter. So a couple of things. One, the nice thing is, of course, blue fine line tape, fresh tape. Hopefully, we have packages that haven't even been opened yet from the FCR package. So I want to just roughly outline this all so that the paint line from the black to the gold will be the blue fine line. Now, a good trick. This is a really good trick. When you come to a point like this, if you were to take one piece of tape and lay it over the other, it's always going to be wonky. This is the trick that I've used. In fact, let me put the camera in kind of a close-up so you can see this, what I'm trying to do. Now, I know this from model airplanes of having inside corners. No matter how you mask this off, it's really hard to get it right. But there's one trick that I think is worth sharing. You cut a piece of tape. Just do this here. And if you can see what I'm doing, I'm holding this over and I want to go a little bit more. Can you see that? A little bit more than the angle I need, because then the joint will be right in the corner. Now, when I cut the other piece, I cut the corner the opposite. Just cut this. And having this little trick, if you're doing this kind of stuff, since we're going to have to do a lot of these arrows, now this one has the opposite cut. And what I try to do is join that right in the point. And then I can adjust this. And that's a really good trick. Now what's left here is just to make sure, once I get the template off, and then I've already marked all of them that I've actually used. So if I have to, the reason to make that easy, if I have to, and I don't want to even think about crashing the bike or have to repaint this, I'll have these patterns, which I have a lot of hours in already made up. So now I've tried to look for anything that I need to change or want to change. And again, the parts are not symmetrical, so, but I think I've got it that it's not going to look, well, they're not that different anyway, so. But here's the key thing is now to press your fingernail down wherever there's a tape joint, wherever they come together. I want to take a clean paper towel, burnish down all the edges. And then, of course, I got to backmask this. And then the big thing, I want to do my little test with the gold paint. I'm going to try to airbrush this on. And hopefully it won't be raining. It'll make it a lot easier if it's not raining. And as I always try to do, is to thank our late friend Walt Frey for all the things he contributed to my knowledge of painting as a professional. He had done some model airplanes that were just off the chart. I do remember one where he painted an Indian's head, and airbrushed an Indian's head onto a plane. Well, I don't think I'll be doing that, basically because I don't have the talent. But he was quite a guy, and the fact that he shared everything he knew with us, including the gold leaf lettering. Anyway, kind of redundant, cut and dry. We're going to backmask everything off. So only this is showing, re-burnish all the edges, and then mix up our gold paint. Now with the parts all backmasked, and one of the things I forgot to put on the video is when you're doing a point like this, you can take take the tin foil and just rub your finger on it and take the imprint and then cut the tin foil back and put that second piece of tape on. I know I've shown that in the past, but I like to show it over and over for new people to the channel. But anyway, we're ready to mix gold. Now I say mix the gold. We've already mixed and tested, but I want to do another mix and test. I have the original jar that I painted the glass and the light bulb. Well, I want to airbrush this, but the weather right now is really looking like it's going to rain. And I don't want to rush. So what I did, I mixed this up previously from clear urethane, the ordinary car paint that had no pigment, and I added my own pigment, that vivid pigment that you can get from Amazon. It's about $6 a container. There's 2 containers in this jar of paint, and I've got to really shake it up because, of course, any metallic color, see, now you can see it's most of it's in there, but you really have to do 2 minutes maybe of shake and bake, and until you see nothing on the bottom before I pour a little bit of this out, because I'm going to be putting it through an airbrush, so I'm going to have to be very careful. See, there's still some pigment in there. I might have a little bit too much pigment, but I'll know once I spray it. And I can always adjust it. I bought 5 extra things of pigment in case I wanted to paint a house or a car or whatever. And yeah, see, I'm almost ready now. But the point I wanted to make is you've got to constantly shake it. Any metallic color, you can't just shake it once and then an hour later everything's down at the bottom. All right, so I wanted to just put the information. This is real easy. This is Prisma 65. The color is turquoise gold, and it's about $7 for a jar. I wound up putting a little over 2 jars into what amounts to be, I can't even tell how much it is. It says 62 fluid ounces. I don't know. That can't be 62. It says a quart. I don't know if they're doing this in Chinese. I could just tell by looking at it. But here's the thing. I poured some of this off, and I've marked what it is. I poured some of it off into a much smaller container, because when I do this test, I want to airbrush with my Iwata airbrush. I'm going to do a little test before I ever go near the motorcycle. I want to see what these paint edges are going to look like. Now, I want to be able to fine-tune the amount of pigment that's in here. So here's what I want to do. If this covers in one coat, maybe there's a little too much pigment, in which case the paint is not going to be as durable. If I take more than 3 coats, there's not enough. So if it's between 2 and 3 coats to get a nice color gold, then I've got it close. But I want to be able to adjust it. And since I'm only going to airbrush in, I'm probably going to use a spoonful of paint. I don't want to adjust the pigment in here. I want to do it in here. And that's a really good way of doing it, is make a big amount and then fine tune it so you can tell if you've got too much. Now, if I have too much pigment in here and this covers in one coat, I'll just add some more clear binder. Well, what's going to happen if it takes 10 coats, I've got to go, and I got plenty of pigment, I'm going to have to put more of the vivid pigment in the paint. Now, as you can imagine, it just started raining. So I'm going to have to do this. Since it's just a small amount, I'm just going to have to, and I wanted to show this, I want to start at the top. And one coat, that's what, one coat, maybe I'm a little light on pigment. I'm not sure yet. We're going to be going over black. So what I'll do is I'll give this a couple minutes to dry, and then put 2 coats, and then 3 coats. And if it covers in 3 coats, I got it. So it did take 3 coats. So what it's telling me is I might be a little light on pigment, but there's nothing bad happens even if you have to put 4 coats on. But if you're wrong the other way, if you put too much pigment in, and then you go to pull the tape up, sometimes you get a rough edge. And you definitely lose some quality of the paint by over pigmenting it. There's a certain amount you can go over, but you can't go to where the paint has nothing binding it together. So I think that's a good test. We're ready to paint. Now 1 coat, obviously, I'm going to go 3. I may even put a 4th coat on there because I really want that to be gold. This is why I made a little jar in case I needed to adjust this. In this case, I'm not going to adjust it, but what I'm doing, each time I'm shaking it, I make sure all the pigment is not at the bottom, and I go right over and paint. And I have made dedicated videos to decanting paint and decanting Brodak dope and various other things. This is like like cooking, where you just got a little too much salt, a little not enough, or whatever. And I love my Iwata airbrush. Over 30 years of good service. And it's always a good idea in between coats. Just give it 5-10 minutes to tack off. So what I decided to do is just let each coat tack up about 15 minutes and put 4 full coats on. That way I know it's going to be super gold, gold, gold. And since it's such a small amount, I really want that to pop. That's going to be one of the defining features. And I could add a little more pigment, but I don't want to. I want it to really be, I don't want to get into a high risk area here. That hopefully will be safe. Now, what it'll allow us to do too, when the last coat is dry, I'll pull a tape on this, make sure I have nice clean edges. And that'll give me a test, and then when that's done, I'll let that dry for a good hour, maybe more. So unfortunately for us, it does not look like the weather's cooperating and we're going to be able to get any clear on that, but we will give it another hour or so to dry. And we'll come back to this and see how those stripes pull up. See if we have the gold that we actually want to have for the color. I want that to all dry up by a heating vent right now for at least an hour. No, I waited out most of the day today thinking it might stop raining. I might be able to get the clear on. But you know what? This is just one of those days. I don't think it's going to get better. And I don't want to make myself crazy, so I think I got to throw the towel in here. So I think realistically it's a day we're going to live to fight another day. And actually what will happen is I'll get to let this dry overnight. And that may or may not be in my favor. See, I usually like to, before I pull up any tape, I always like to let it sit overnight. But again, I don't have a choice today. Today's one of the days nature made the decision for me. Sometimes nature wins. It wins a lot. And that's why I like to, whenever I get a sunny day, a day in the high 40s, I just grab it as a writing day. And days like today, it was just not meant to be. And I guess the lesson is a good lesson learned. I just don't ever want to rush these things. Now, I'm really happy that gold looks just as gold as can be. That's just perfect. So if I was not happy with this, I would try adding a little more pigment and putting 3 coats instead of 4. But the way it played out, tomorrow when I get into the shop, I'll have my coffee, pull this apart, hope it's not raining, or hope there's no chance of rain. This time of year, you never know. But anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for painting everything in your house gold.